Hello, Terry Jenkins here, the writer and creator of Favor of Athena and the owner of Terry Jenkins LLC, the future of Christian based comics and cartoons. And I have stuff just falling all over my desk right now. All right, so today we're going to discuss story structure. And we're going to be using the methodology from Save the Cat, in which we're going to learn about the 15 beats. But before we get into that, please hit the bell to be notified of new videos. Give me a like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comment section. It helps my channel out. You know, you heard other YouTubers talk about it, so help me out. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so for some writers, when you tell them story structure or outline, some people run for the hills. There's two types of writers. We have pantsers, who are people who just write off the cuff. They don't really think about where the story is going. They write with their feeling for the most part. So they don't have a roadmap. Now, there is nothing wrong with being a pantser. Sometimes being a pantser is beneficial because at least you're writing and you are heading somewhere. You may not know where, but you're heading somewhere. Now we also have plotters, and plotters tend to really map out the story from the very beginning to the end, tying up subplots. But sometimes the problem with plotters is that they spend too much time plotting and not enough time writing. And I feel like for myself personally, I'm a little bit of both, but I'm definitely more so a plotter. Now, regardless of what type of writer you may feel you are going to need a structure to your story. And that's where the Save the Cat methodology comes in. Now, there's a lot of people that don't like it. They feel that it's too formulaic. But every story has a structure, and every story can be compared to another story. Beauty and the Beast is really nothing like, it's almost like Romeo and Juliet, forbidden love. You need story structure so that it's something that is similar, but you're putting your own spin on things. Titanic is another example of a Romeo and Juliet love story, but it's based on the Titanic. So, how do we structure a story? In this case, our comic book scripts. Well, Blake Snyder came up with 15 beats. These beats are crucial parts of the story that help move the story forward. The first beat is called the open image. And with the open image, you're doing several things. The first thing you are doing is establishing the tone of the story. In most cases, you are introducing either the plot or the character. But in either case, you have to make it interesting. This is the moment where you grab the audience and strap them in. In the open image, it's going to be, it has to be very descriptive. It has to be eye-catching. Sometimes this beat is called the flashbang opening. You're also establishing, if you're doing a protagonist based open image, you're establishing the protagonist's world before he changes. Yeah. I know. Trying. All right. Our second beat is the theme stated. And in the theme stated, the B story comes to light. Usually, this is done by having another character point out what the character, the protagonist, needs to learn. A non-comic book example of this is from the movie The Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible gets to his wedding and he's having banter with Elastigirl. And Elastigirl tells Mr. Incredible, you know, in order for this to work, you have to be more than Mr. Incredible. And then Mr. Incredible responds to her that she needs to learn to be more flexible. And what we don't know at that moment is that they're both mentioning what their flaws are. And when we fast forward a few years in their marriage, we see that those flaws are affecting their marriage. And the movie is now learning to be more than Mr. Incredible and learning to be flexible. So that is one of the best examples of the theme stated. So the theme stated introduces your B story, what this, which is what your whole story is really about. The third beat is the setup. Now the setup can include the open image and theme stated, but what you're really trying to accomplish in setup is you're establishing what the problems are for the protagonist. Um, and you're going to do that in three different ways. You can show the problems at home, show the problems at the workplace, and then you can show the internal problems. Again, this is where you want the audience to care about your protagonist, whether they're a hero, anti-hero, or villain. This is where you want to introduce them. This is also the beat where you introduce the antagonist and just about anybody else that is really going to be crucial to the story. And that can be difficult, but it can definitely be done. The fourth beat is called the catalyst. And this is a single scene that sets your story in motion. The catalyst is what's going to take your protagonist and start him on his journey through the story. in Full Metal Alchemist, our catalyst of the story essentially is when Edward and Alphonse return from another fell hunt, only to, and I'm talking about the first anime series. The the overall story doesn't start until the Elric brothers encounter lust. And it's very subtle, but that's the catalyst of the whole story because this is going to lead the Elrics to essentially fight Dante. And lost my train of thought. So without meeting Lust, the actual storyline may not happen the way it did. And that's why it's considered a catalyst. The fifth beat is called the debate. And there are two types of debates. The first type is the prep for adventure, where the protagonist essentially gets whatever they may need to go on their new adventure. The second beat, I mean, not the second beat, but the second debate is a question. And it's essentially, will the protagonist decide to take this new journey? The call to adventure, as you will. So, a good example of the debate would be using Spider-Man, whether you're talking about the movies or his first appearance, where the catalyst for Spider-Man is he gets bitten by the spider. The debate is when Uncle Ben is murdered. What does Peter Parker do? So it's more of a question debate rather than a prep for adventure debate. And Peter decides to capture the crook. And after he captures the crook, he decides to become more responsible, thus leading to him becoming Spider-Man, which is sort of kind of like also prepping for the adventure. So Spider-Man is an awesome example. And then our last beat for Act 1 is the break into 2. The break into 2 is what ends our first act. It propels the character from his normal world into the unknown world. Now, if this is a series, this is just you going from Act 1 to Act 2. But if this is a standalone miniseries, you're really taking your character from his normal world to the new world. If we look at the manga Bleach, by the end of the first volume, or for yeah, volume, Ichigo has become a Soul Reaper and has to defeat the Hollow that is attacking his family. In Spider-Man, this is when he decides to become Spider-Man. The break into two, as far as comic book writing, is probably going to be if you're writing a miniseries or if you're writing a four-part story, which is what they usually do in comics these days. Um, your act one is probably most likely one issue. And as far as pacing the story goes, that's how I would do it. And for my examples that will be on Patreon, that's the example that we will be following. We will be using the acts to break up our comic book story. The break into act one is essential. This is when you're explaining your comic story, you're essentially going to tell people the story by using your act break. So you'll be using the break into two, you'll be using the midpoint, the break into three, and then your finale, which we'll cover at a later date. All right. So again, I'm trying not to make these too long. Those are the first 6 beats, which comprise Act 1 of the Save the Cat methodology. I hope this brings value to anybody that is trying to learn how to structure their story. And the next time we'll go over Act 2, which is longer than what it seems. And I believe that's all I got for you guys. So again, please hit that bell to be notified of new videos. Give me a like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment in the comment section. And we'll be back for the Act 2 beats in the next episode. Until then, keep writing, be terrific, and I'll see you guys later.